The twin suns of Vraxis Prime burned hot above the city of glass towers and metal streets. In the center of it stood the Market of Chains, a place where screams were cheaper than silence and hope was something sold by the hour. Dozens of cages lined the dusty square, filled with beings from 100 worlds. Traders shouted, guards laughed, and the air smelled of fear and burned metal. Among the captives stood Ethan, a human man with rough hands and calm eyes. His wrists were bound, his shirt torn, but his posture stayed strong. Around him, other slaves trembled as the alien buyers walked by, inspecting them like animals. Ethan didn't flinch. He just looked ahead, waiting. He wasn't here to be sold. He was here for something else, something no one around him could guess. Next to him stood Lyra, a young alien woman with silver skin and blue markings across her neck. She looked weak, quiet, harmless, but her eyes, those sharp golden eyes, were always moving, watching the guards, counting the cameras, tracking every exit. The auctioneer, a tall creature with 6 arms and jeweled horns, raised his voice. "Next lot, rare species. Human male, fully functional, loyal." The crowd roared. Some laughed, others shouted bids. Ethan kept his expression blank. Only when his gaze met Lyra's did his fingers twitch. A tiny motion, a signal. Lyra lowered her head, pretending to cry. The guard beside her kicked the bars. "Quiet, slave," he barked. She didn't answer. She was whispering. Softly, almost inaudibly. "They think we're slaves being sold." She murmured, her lips barely moving. "Ready to show them what a rescue mission looks like?" Ethan gave the slightest nod. No one noticed when his thumb pressed against the metal shackle on his wrist. Inside the tiny device was a pulse trigger, a silent beacon that sent a coded signal deep below the market floor. Far beneath, in the underground tunnels, hidden machines hummed to life. The auction continued. The crowd pushed closer. A merchant shouted, 2,000 credits for the human. Another yelled, 3! The air grew hotter, the tension thicker. Lyra's heart pounded. She could almost hear the ticking inside her own chest, counting down. She looked up at Ethan one last time. His calm made her brave. Suddenly, a deafening boom tore through the square. A blast of white light shot up from under the stage, throwing the auctioneer backward. The ground shook. Screams filled the air, smoke covered everything. "Attack!" shouted one of the guards. But Ethan had already moved. He broke his shackles like paper. The lock had been melted from inside. He lunged forward, grabbed a fallen blaster and aimed it, not at the crowd, but at the giant energy crystal above the market. He fired once. The crystal shattered into 1,000,000 burning fragments. Instantly, every cage lost power. The force fields collapsed with a hiss. All around him, prisoners began to realize they were free. Lyra kicked open her cage and ran to him. "The drones?" she shouted over the chaos. "Already here," Ethan replied. Above them, the clouds broke apart as small, black, winged machines descended, silent and precise. They moved through the smoke like shadows, shooting at guards, disabling turrets, cutting chains. The crowd panicked, running in every direction. A group of aliens tried to block Ethan's path, shouting in their language. He didn't waste a word. He spun his blaster, shooting only at their weapons, not their bodies. "No killing," he said under his breath. "Just freedom." Lyra smiled even as she ran beside him through fire and dust. "You humans," she said. "You always make it look dramatic." "Comes with the job," Ethan replied. A stray energy bolt exploded near them, throwing both to the ground. Ethan rolled, coughing, his arm bleeding slightly. Lyra helped him up, eyes glowing fierce gold. "We need to reach the tunnel gate," she said. They sprinted across the burning stalls. Around them, freed slaves fought for their lives, picking up fallen weapons. The Market of Chains had turned into a battlefield. Ethan reached a heavy metal door near the old trading post. He pressed his hand against a small red panel. It scanned his fingerprint and clicked open. Beneath it lay a stairway leading down into darkness. "After you," he said. Lyra looked back at the chaos one last time. The once proud slavers were now running, terrified. Flames painted the sky orange. She turned to Ethan and grinned. "They thought we were property," she said. "Let's show them what freedom looks like." Together, they disappeared into the shadows below, just as the human drones above unleashed their final wave, turning the Market of Chains into ashes. Dark smoke covered the sky above the ruined market. Screams and alarms echoed between metal walls. The once busy square had turned into a burning maze of panic. Among the chaos, Ethan and Lyra moved fast through the broken tunnels under the stage. Their footsteps splashed in shallow water, their breathing loud in the echoing corridor. Lyra's hand trembled slightly as she activated her wristband, its faint blue light showing the path ahead. "You sure they got your signal?" she asked. Ethan nodded. "If the code went through, the fleet knows where we are. But we still have to reach the surface beacon." Behind them, muffled explosions continued above. The market guards were regrouping. The slavers wouldn't give up easily, not after losing their most profitable stock. Lyra smirked through the dust. "They still think this was an accident. Wait till they find out humans planned this for months." Ethan gave a rare smile. "Let's hope the surprise lasts long enough." They turned a corner and found a steel door half buried in debris. Ethan forced it open with a grunt. Inside was a large chamber filled with abandoned cargo crates and half-dismantled machinery. This was once part of the transport hub where new captives were sorted and priced. The walls still carried scratch marks, reminders of those who had begged for freedom. Lyra stopped, staring at one of the marks. Her fingers brushed the rough metal. "My sister was here once," she said quietly. "They sold her to the mines." Ethan didn't speak. He just placed a hand on her shoulder. "We'll find her," he said firmly. "That's a promise." Before she could answer, a faint beep came from Ethan's wristband. He looked down, the signal pulsed once, then twice. A message flashed. "Unit Bravo, signal received. Fleet inbound. Time to extract 27 minutes. Lyra's heart leapt. "They're coming!" But Ethan's expression stayed hard. "That means every slaver between here and the beacon will come too." A low growl echoed through the tunnel as heavy boots approached. Shadows flickered under the doorway. Lyra's eyes widened. "Guards!" Ethan dove behind a crate as plasma bolts hissed through the room, burning holes in the metal. Sparks flew everywhere. Lyra rolled to cover, grabbing a fallen blaster from the ground. "Guess we make our own path," she shouted. The two fired in rhythm, Ethan aiming low to disarm, Lyra shooting the ceiling to drop pipes and debris on the guards. Within seconds, the tunnel filled with smoke. The guards coughed, shouting orders. Lyra moved fast, jumping over the wreckage. Her tail flicked with focus as she fired the last shot, striking the control panel. The door slammed shut behind them, trapping their pursuers inside. Ethan exhaled slowly. "You've got good aim." "I had a good teacher," she said, reloading the blaster. They kept running deeper into the tunnels until the narrow passage opened into a massive underground platform. A dozen prisoners waited there, different species, all freed from the cages above. Their faces lit up when they saw Ethan. "Is it true?" a reptilian slave asked. "You're humans? You came to save us?" Ethan nodded once. "Not just you, all of you. Every last one still in chains." Lyra stepped forward. "But we need your help. The beacon is at the outer gate. We hold it until the fleet arrives or no one's leaving this planet." The crowd exchanged nervous looks, but when they saw Ethan's calm confidence, they straightened. One by one, they picked up fallen weapons from the ground. "Let's make them believe their nightmare," Lyra said. They formed a loose defense line as Ethan climbed a ladder to reach the upper hatch. He looked through the cracked vent. Outside, armored transports were moving in fast. "Here they come," he said. Lyra stood beside him, her golden eyes glowing in the dim light. "Then we don't hide anymore." As the first transport broke through the tunnel wall, Ethan slammed his fist on his wristband. The hidden drones he'd released earlier came back online, circling above like metallic hawks. "Defense protocol, Delta formation," he ordered. The drones spread across the ceiling, firing precise blue beams that tore through enemy armor. The slavers screamed, their vehicles exploding one by one. The freed captives cheered, their voices rising above the chaos. Lyra fired beside Ethan, her face lit by the flicker of energy blasts. "This doesn't feel like running anymore," she said. Ethan reloaded. "That's because it isn't, it's payback." When the last slaver transport fell in flames, Ethan looked at his wristband again. The beacon light flashed green, fleet locked on target. "ETA 12 minutes, he turned to the crowd. "Hold the line. Freedom's almost here." Lyra smiled through the smoke. "Let them think we're slaves one more time," she whispered. "It'll make the ending sweeter." And with that, the market of change shook again. Only this time it wasn't from fear. It was from hope. The tunnels beneath Vraxis Prime trembled as explosions thundered above. Dust and sparks rained down from the cracked ceiling. Ethan led the group through the dim passage, his flashlight flickering against the metallic walls. Behind him, Lyra guarded the rear, her blaster ready, her golden eyes sharp. The air smelled of smoke and ozone. "We're almost there," Ethan said, glancing at his wristband. "The hangar should be just beyond this junction." Lyra coughed from the dust but managed a grin. "If it's still standing." "Then we'll fly through the ashes," Ethan replied. They reached a large door, dented and half-melted from earlier blasts. Ethan motioned for silence and placed his hand on a small panel. The scanner hesitated, then blinked green. The door slid open with a painful screech. Inside stretched a wide chamber, once a secret loading dock, now turned into a temporary hideout. Rusted ships and scavenged cargo filled the space. A faint blue glow shone from the far end where a single freighter rested, dust-covered but intact. Lyra's eyes widened. "You kept this here?" "In their territory," Ethan smirked. "They searched for humans everywhere, except under their own market." Before they could step closer, a loud crash echoed behind them. Lyra spun around, blaster raised. A burning support beam had fallen, blocking part of the tunnel. Then came the growl of engines, enemy transports. "They're here," someone shouted. Ethan shouted to the others, "Get to the freighter! Move!" Panic rippled through the group of freed slaves. Aliens of all kinds scrambled toward the ship as the tunnel entrance burst open, revealing armored slavers with glowing rifles. Energy bolts filled the air. The walls lit up in flashes of red and blue. Lyra dived behind a crate, firing quick bursts. "They're cutting off our exit." Ethan jumped to another cover point, his shots precise and deliberate. Not for long. He looked toward a glowing console on the far wall. "Cover me!" Lyra didn't hesitate. She rolled out into open space, drawing enemy fire. Plasma bolts flew past her shoulders, grazing her arm, but she didn't stop. Her focus was pure fire. Ethan sprinted toward the console, slammed his palm onto it, and hit the override. A low hum filled the hangar as the ceiling panel slid apart, revealing the night sky above. Stars glimmered through the smoke. "Open sky," Ethan said. "Let's finish this." One of the larger slavers roared, charging forward with a shock baton. Lyra met him halfway. The alien swung hard, but she ducked and struck back with her weapon's handle, jamming it into his ribs. He fell, groaning. Ethan reached her, breath heavy. "Nice work." "I told you," she said, panting. "You humans make this look dramatic." Together, they helped the last of the freed captives aboard. Ethan sealed the ramp and ran to the cockpit, Lyra sliding into the co-pilot's seat. The freighter's engines coughed and sputtered, struggling to power up. "Come on, old girl," Ethan muttered, pressing the ignition again. The ship shuddered, then roared to life. The sound was thunderous, freedom taking shape in metal and fire. Lyra strapped in and shouted, "We've got more incoming." "They're launching fighters." Through the cracked window, streaks of red light filled the sky. Enemy ships diving toward them. Ethan gritted his teeth. "Hold tight!" The freighter lifted off, shaking violently as they broke through the smoke. The ground below was chaos. Fire, broken cages, and running shadows. Ethan tilted the ship hard to the left, avoiding a plasma blast that scorched their hull. Lyra gripped the side panel. "We can't outfly them all." Ethan smiled faintly. "Who said we'll need to?" He pressed a red switch hidden beneath the console. The ship's underside opened, releasing 2 stealth drones. They darted into the sky like twin comets, slicing through enemy formations. Explosions bloomed behind them. Lyra blinked. "You've been holding those back?" "Always keep a surprise," Ethan said, maneuvering the ship between the flaming towers of Vraxis Prime. Still, the enemy fighters kept coming. One shot hit the rear engines, making the whole freighter shake. Sparks burst from the controls. "Ethan!" Lyra cried. He steadied the ship, smoke filling the cockpit. I know." His fingers danced across the console, rerouting power. The freighter dropped altitude, skimming dangerously close to the rooftops. Below, they could see the chaos spreading. The market of chains was collapsing. Flames reached toward the stars like the claws of a dying beast. "We did that," Lyra whispered. Ethan gave her a quick look. "No, they did that, the ones we freed." An enemy fighter appeared ahead, aiming for their nose. Lyra reacted first. She grabbed the side turret control and fired. A direct hit. The fighter exploded, scattering burning debris across the night sky. The freighter flew straight through the sparks, engines roaring, leaving the dying market behind. Lyra leaned back, catching her breath. You think we're clear? Ethan glanced at the radar. More signals were appearing, hundreds of them. His expression softened. Not yet, he said. But soon. Through the window, something glimmered on the horizon. Dozens of silver shapes, too organized to be enemies. Lyra's eyes widened. What is that? Ethan smiled faintly, the reflection of stars in his eyes. That, he said, is home arriving. As the freighter climbed higher into the sky, the horizon filled with light, the beginning of something far greater than escape. The freighter shook as it broke through the clouds. Below, Vraxis Prime burned like a dying ember, its once mighty slave market now a storm of fire and falling steel. Inside the ship, chaos had settled into tense silence. The rescued captives sat along the metal floor, their faces pale, eyes wide with disbelief. For the first time, they were free. Yet no one dared to celebrate. Ethan moved through the narrow passage between them, checking injuries, adjusting controls on the wall panels. His left arm was wrapped in a blood-stained cloth, but he didn't slow down. Lyra followed behind, carrying a small medkit and giving quick aid where she could. The hum of the freighter's engines was their only comfort. How bad is it? She asked, glancing at his wound. Just a graze, Ethan said. I've had worse, Lyra gave a faint smile. You humans always say that. Before he could reply, a low beeping sound came from the console. Ethan hurried forward to the cockpit. The radar blinked red. Multiple signatures were closing in, fast. More slaver ships, he muttered. They're tracking us. Lyra looked over his shoulder. We can't fight them all. We don't need to, Ethan said. Just need to reach the extraction point. Fleet's only minutes away. He adjusted the flight course. The freighter's engines roared louder, the stars stretching into streaks as they sped toward orbit. But deep in the shadows of the cargo bay, someone watched. A tall, alien male, one of the recently rescued captives, stood apart from the group. His name was Arthur, a traitor-turned-informant who once worked for the same slavers that owned this ship. His face was hard, his eyes cold. As he looked at Ethan, his fingers brushed a hidden communicator on his wrist. Confirming human alive, he whispered. Package intact. A faint voice crackled through his device. Hold them until our interceptors arrive. Rithor's lips curved into a cruel smile. Back in the cockpit, Ethan's focus was on the radar. 2 minutes to extraction point, he said. Hold tight. Lyra nodded, scanning the ship's systems. Engines at 60%. Shield stable. Then, a sudden flash of light. A piercing alarm filled the cockpit. The freighter jolted hard, sending everyone tumbling. Smoke erupted from the rear. We're hit, Lyra shouted. Ethan gripped the controls, fighting to stabilize the ship. That came from inside, he realized. Before he could react, Rithor stepped into the doorway behind them, holding a plasma pistol. His voice was calm, but his eyes burned with greed. I'm sorry, human, he said, but freedom doesn't pay as well as betrayal. Lyra froze. You were one of us, Rithor sneered. I was never one of you. I helped you escape so they'd pay me double when I returned with you. And your precious command codes. He pointed the gun directly at Ethan. Step away from the controls. Ethan didn't move. If you fire, we all die. The reactor's unstable. Then maybe I'll aim for her instead, Rithor said, turning the barrel toward Lyra. She didn't flinch. You really think they'll honor a deal with a traitor? He smirked. I think they'll pay before killing me. Ethan's eyes narrowed. You're wrong. He pressed a hidden switch beneath the control panel. A small pulse emitted. A faint blue shimmer passed through the air. Rithor looked confused for half a second. Then his communicator sparked and exploded on his wrist. The shockwave threw him back, his weapon sliding across the floor. He roared in pain, clutching his burned arm. Lyra moved instantly, kicking the gun away and grabbing Ethan's sidearm. She aimed, breathing hard. Don't, Ethan said quietly. Lyra's hands shook. He almost killed you. And we're not them, Ethan replied. He lives, but he doesn't leave this ship. Rithor glared up at them, hatred burning in his eyes. You'll regret this. My people will, Ethan interrupted, pressing a few keys. The floor hatch beneath Arthur slid open, dropping him into a locked containment cell below the cargo deck. His voice faded into muffled shouts. Silence returned. Lyra lowered her weapon slowly. You really weren't going to kill him? Ethan sighed. He's not worth the bullet. Smoke still filled the cockpit, warning lights flashing. Lyra leaned over the console. We lost the left engine. We'll never make orbit like this. Ethan clenched his jaw. Then we fly on one. He rerouted power to the remaining thruster. The freighter groaned but lifted again, its hull glowing red from strain. Outside, enemy interceptors appeared, small but deadly, closing in fast. Lyra gripped the co-pilot's handle. We're surrounded. Ethan looked out the window, calm despite the chaos. Then let's hold out a little longer. Through the smoke, faint lights flickered across the stars, dozens of them. Lyra blinked, realizing what they were. Ethan, she whispered. Is that? He smiled faintly, the light of hope returning to his tired eyes. That's our fleet. And behind them the sky began to glow, Earth's rescue ships breaking through the darkness. Their arrival turning betrayal into salvation. The blackness of space lit up with streaks of light as the human rescue fleet arrived. Giant ships emerged from hyperspace like thunderclouds made of steel, their cannons glowing with blue fire. The fleet's presence filled the horizon, a promise of vengeance and salvation. Inside the battered freighter, alarms screamed. Ethan steadied the controls while Lyra wiped soot from her cheek. Sparks rained down from broken wires above them. The ship trembled violently. They're here, Lyra whispered, staring at the massive fleet approaching through the smoke-streaked window. Ethan nodded, eyes focused. Yeah, but so are the slavers. Dozens of enemy interceptors swarmed toward them, dark and fast. The slaver fleet had arrived too, sleek red ships armed with plasma cannons. Between the two sides, Ethan's freighter hung like a wounded bird. Lyra gritted her teeth. We can't outrun that. We don't have to, Ethan said, flipping several switches. We just have to stay alive until command locks onto our beacon. The freighter shook again as a plasma bolt grazed its side. Metal screeched and the floor tilted sharply. Lyra stumbled but caught herself on the console. Rear shields down to 20%. Ethan slammed his fist on the controls. Then we make them count. He activated the freighter's defense system. 2 small drones launched from the underbelly, spinning outward like silver sparks. They immediately fired blue pulses, hitting the nearest interceptors. Explosions bloomed across the darkness, painting it in bursts of light. But for every enemy that fell, 5 more appeared. Too many. Lyra shouted, her hands gripping the co-pilot's yoke. Ethan's jaw tightened. We're not dying here, not after coming this far. He leaned over the comms. This is Commander Ethan Holt of Earth's Vanguard Division. Any fleet ship, respond. Static crackled, then a female voice answered. Vanguard, this is Solace 1. We have you on radar. Hold position for extraction. Ethan smiled grimly. Copy that. We'll try not to die before you get here. Lyra laughed breathlessly. Not the most reassuring plan. Outside, the battle raged like a storm. Human warships unleashed bright arcs of energy that tore through the slaver fleet. The enemy responded with volleys of red plasma, shaking space itself. Massive explosions rippled across the void, their shockwaves visible from orbit. Ethan's freighter flew between the two fleets, dodging through debris and wreckage. Every move was a gamble. A wrong turn meant instant death. Hang on! He shouted, jerking the controls. The freighter spun, narrowly avoiding a flaming cruiser that broke apart in front of them. A giant engine core exploded, sending shockwaves that rattled every bone in their bodies. Lyra's heart pounded. You call that flying? Ethan grinned through the chaos. I call it surviving. He adjusted course, heading straight toward the largest human battleship. We're going to use her shadow to cover our approach. As they neared, the comms crackled again. Freighter Echo 9. This is Solace 1. You are entering defense range. Prepare for docking. Ethan exhaled in relief. Finally, but the relief was short-lived. A red blip flashed on the radar, fast, closing in. Missile lock. Lyra yelled. Ethan's eyes widened. Hold on. He dove the freighter downward, the missile following closely. The engines screamed. The metal hull groaned like it would rip apart. The missile's glow grew brighter, closer, deadly. At the last second, Ethan pulled up sharply. Now, he shouted. Lyra hit the countermeasure switch. 2 decoy flares shot out, spinning like comets. The missile chased one, exploding in a violent burst right behind them. The freighter rocked hard, alarms blaring again. Smoke filled the cockpit. Lyra coughed. We can't take another hit like that. Ethan didn't answer. His face was pale, sweat dripping down his forehead. Almost there? Through the smoke, they saw the giant hangar of Solace 1 open like a glowing mouth. Blue landing lights blinked in sequence. "We're clear for entry," came the command officer's voice. But then, a final plasma bolt struck the freighter's right wing. The ship spun wildly. "Ethan!" Lyra screamed. He fought the controls with both hands, muscles straining. "Hold steady!" The freighter wobbled, engines sputtering, smoke pouring from every side. Sparks burst across the dashboard. Lyra grabbed the auxiliary throttle, boosting power from the last energy cell. The ship straightened just enough to glide into the hangar. They crashed hard, skidding across the deck in a shower of sparks. Metal screamed. Then silence. Lyra gasped for air, her chest pounding. "Are we alive?" Ethan leaned back in his seat, coughing. Mostly. The hangar doors sealed behind them. Crew members rushed forward, pulling open the cockpit. Cool air flooded in. One of the officers saluted. "Welcome back, Commander Holt. The fleet's been waiting." Lyra turned to him, eyes wide. "Commander." Ethan managed a tired smile. "Guess I forgot to mention that part." Outside the hangar window, the human fleet pressed the attack. The slaver armada was falling apart, their ships exploding one by one under the human barrage. Lyra looked out at the stars, her voice soft. "They thought we were slaves." Ethan nodded, eyes on the battlefield. They were wrong. The final explosion lit up the sky, a signal that the market of chains was gone forever. The silence after battle always felt louder than the gunfire. The hangar of Solace 1 trembled slightly, echoing with the distant hum of engines. Through the massive viewing glass, the wreckage of the slaver armada floated like broken bones across the stars. Fires still burned in the void, red, blue, and gold. Ethan Holt, bandaged but standing tall, watched the drifting debris. His reflection in the glass looked older than he remembered, haunted but alive. Behind him, engineers and medics rushed about, helping the rescued captives off the damaged freighter. Lyra stood a few steps away, her silver skin marked with soot and small burns, but her golden eyes still bright. She had seen many battles in her life, but none that felt like this. This wasn't conquest, it was freedom arriving in steel and flame. "You never told me," she said quietly, walking beside him, "that you were a commander." Ethan gave a small smile. "Didn't seem important at the time. You wouldn't have trusted me if you knew." She raised an eyebrow. "You're right. I wouldn't." They both laughed softly, their voices fragile in the heavy air. Outside, the fleet formed ranks again. Dozens of human battleships floated in perfect formation, their hulls marked with the insignia of Earth's Vanguard Division, a silver hand breaking a chain. Fighters zipped between them, rounding up survivors and scanning wreckage for any remaining captives. Lyra's gaze followed the movement. "I thought humans were gone," she said. "Vanished from the stars." Ethan's eyes stayed on the fleet. "That's what we wanted them to believe. For years we hid, rebuilt, trained, waited. The galaxy thought humanity was extinct after the Purge Wars." He turned toward her. "But we were just getting ready." Lyra folded her arms. "So the rumors were true. The ghosts of Earth became soldiers." He chuckled softly. "Ghosts don't bleed this much." A loud metallic clang interrupted them. The hangar's inner door opened, revealing a tall woman in a dark blue uniform, the fleet admiral herself. Her short gray hair and sharp eyes carried the weight of command. She walked straight to Ethan, saluted briefly, then smiled. "Welcome home, Commander Holt," she said. "You did it." "The Vraxis market is gone," Ethan nodded. "We freed as many as we could. There are still captives in other systems. We'll get them," the Admiral said firmly. "The operation starts now. The fleet's been waiting for this signal." She turned to Lyra, studying her for a moment. "And this must be your partner." Lyra hesitated. "Partner?" Ethan cleared his throat awkwardly. Field partner." The Admiral's lips curved in amusement. "Of course." She extended her hand to Lyra. "The Vanguard owes you thanks, miss." "Lyra," she said simply, shaking her hand. "Just Lyra." "Then thank you, Lyra," the Admiral replied. "You risked your life for people who aren't even your own kind." Lyra's voice was steady. "Kindness isn't decided by species." The Admiral's expression softened. "Spoken like a true ally." As the Admiral left to oversee the operations, Lyra turned to Ethan. "She called this the start of an operation." Ethan nodded. "That's right. Operation Dawnlight, the first full strike against the slaver networks." She frowned slightly. "So, the fight isn't over?" "It's never over," he said. "But this time, we're not alone." Through the hangar's wide window, they watched dozens of smaller ships break formation and spread out into hyperspace. Each carried teams, supplies, and freedom fighters. Humanity was no longer hiding, it was returning. Then the comms crackled. Fleet message. Broadcast to all systems. A strong male voice echoed through every corridor of Solace 1 and beyond. To every enslaved soul in the galaxy, this is the human vanguard. The markets will burn, the chains will fall. We have returned. The hangar fell silent as the words sank in. Even the rescued captives stopped to listen, their eyes shining with tears. Lyra felt a lump rise in her throat. They'll hear that on every world, she whispered. That's the point, Ethan said quietly. For the first time, Lyra saw something in his eyes, not just duty but pain. She realized this mission wasn't just about saving strangers. It was personal. You lost people too, didn't you? She asked softly. Ethan looked away. A long time ago. I swore no one else would. Lyra touched his arm gently. Then you kept your promise? He smiled faintly. Maybe. But there's still one promise left, to finish what we started. Suddenly, the radar alarms blared again. Lyra stiffened. More hostiles? Ethan checked the screen, then exhaled. No, escape pods. Hundreds of them from the enemy fleet. He looked at her, a question in his eyes. What do we do with them? Lyra thought for a moment, then said, show them mercy. Let them live to see what freedom looks like. Ethan nodded slowly. You're starting to sound human. She smiled. Maybe you're starting to sound alien. The stars outside burned bright, reflecting in their eyes. The war was far from over, but for the first time in generations, hope moved through the void like sunlight after endless night. The stars over Vraxis Prime were quiet now. Where the slave ships once circled like vultures, only drifting wreckage remained. Silent witnesses to a battle that changed everything. The human vanguard fleet floated above the planet, lights blinking like distant campfires in the dark. Inside Solace 1, the survivors were gathered in the central observation bay. The wide glass window framed the ruined world below. The air carried the hum of engines and the faint scent of metal and smoke. For many, it was their first time breathing without fear. Ethan Holt stood near the window, his uniform newly cleaned but his arm still bandaged. His face was marked with exhaustion, yet his eyes carried something stronger. Peace. Around him, freed captives sat wrapped in blankets, whispering softly to one another in a dozen languages. Lyra stepped beside him, holding 2 metal cups of hot synth tea. You should rest, she said. He took one with a small smile. I'll rest when we get them home. She looked at the crowd. Alien children clung to their parents, too weak to speak. Some of the older ones stared out at the stars, not understanding what had happened yet. They don't even know what home is anymore, she murmured. Ethan's voice was quiet. Then we'll give them a new one. For a while, they stood in silence, watching as shuttles flew between ships, carrying refugees to safety. Every few minutes, someone new would walk up to Ethan, an alien soldier, a rescued child, an engineer, and thank him. He never took credit, only nodded and said, You did it too. Then came a voice behind them. Rathor, the traitor they had captured. 2 guards brought him forward, his hands bound but his pride still visible. His expression was cold. So this is your grand victory? He sneered. You freed a few slaves. The rest of the galaxy still belongs to the masters. Ethan turned, meeting his gaze steadily. Not for long. Rathor laughed harshly. You think your humans can fight everyone? You're outnumbered in every system. Lyra stepped closer, her golden eyes sharp. We were outnumbered at the market of chains, too. Look how that ended. Rathor's smirk faded. For the first time, he looked uncertain. Ethan nodded to the guards. Put him in the med bay. He's wounded, not our prisoner anymore. The guards hesitated. Lyra frowned. You're letting him go? Ethan turned back to the stars. Let him live with what he saw. That's punishment enough. Lyra watched him quietly, realizing again why she'd trusted him. Why even the broken followed when he said, Stand up. A moment later, the Admiral entered the bay. Commander Holt, she called. The fleet is ready to depart. New coordinates set for the next target, Arcadia Belt. Ethan nodded. We'll join the formation soon. The Admiral gave him a knowing smile. You've done enough for today. Let the others handle the next strike. As she left, the large screen flickered to life behind them, a broadcast from Earth itself, the first in decades. The planet looked scarred but alive, its cities rebuilding. A voice echoed through the bay. To every world that remembers us and to every slave who forgot freedom, humanity has returned. Not as conquerors, but as those who refuse to look away. Applause rose in the bay, soft at first, then louder, rolling like thunder. Some wept openly. Lyra felt something burn in her chest, a strange mix of pride and relief. She turned to Ethan. "You did it. You gave them hope again." Ethan shook his head gently. "No, we did. You, me, every one of them who dared to believe." She smiled faintly. "So what happens now?" Ethan looked out at the stars, his expression both tired and resolute. "Now we keep going. There are still chains out there. Still markets. Still monsters who think kindness is weakness." Lyra sipped her tea, watching the endless stars. "And what about you? When this is over, what then?" He chuckled softly. "Then maybe I'll finally take that vacation you keep talking about." Her lips curved into a small grin. "Somewhere with fewer explosions, I hope." "Maybe," he said. "But knowing us, we'd probably start another rescue mission before breakfast." The bay lights dimmed as the fleet engines powered up. Outside, the warships aligned, their thrusters burning bright against the void. Ethan straightened his uniform and gave one last look at the freed souls around him. "They thought we were slaves," he whispered, almost to himself. "They'll never make that mistake again." Lyra placed a hand on his shoulder. "You know," she said softly, "when I first met you, I thought you were crazy." He smiled. "You were right. Still are," she teased. As Solace 1 began to move, the stars shifted, stretching into long trails of light. The fleet jumped to hyperspace, leaving behind the ruins of Vraxis Prime and the ghosts of those who had once ruled it. In that moment, the galaxy changed, because somewhere out there, on worlds still shackled in darkness, slaves looked up at the sky and saw a flash of blue light cutting through the night. Hope had a new name now, human, and for the first time in ages, freedom was no longer just a dream.